Hello, my random viewers, and welcome to Randomly Offensive. Today, we will be continuing the story of Genetic Blessings in Part 2, Chapter 3. And if you have missed the previous chapters of Part 2, I will have them linked right here, right now, at the tippy top of the video, along with Part 1. If you had missed Part 1, I'll have the playlist of all 6 chapters at the tippy top of this video as well. So with that being said, let's hop into Genetic Blessings, Part 2, Chapter 3. The chief sits at the White House watching the president rub his forehead in frustration. 1 year. 1 year has passed, and no one has yet to claim the reward on the heads of Vince, Alex, Al, and Jasmine, and in the meantime, they have not only managed to defeat Howard and the duo of Zorg and Lance, but have stolen the armor of King Henry VIII, humiliating the British Museum. And though we managed to disguise that as a hoax, if this continues happening, we will not be able to keep the genetic blessings a secret for much longer. What are you going to do to fix the mistake that you created, Chief? Says the president, with the chief simply washing his glasses. It's simple. For the most part, I will trust that your plan will eventually work. However, I can step in. I can easily call the twins and pick off Jasmine. I suggest trying to take the team out one by one instead of trying to take on the full force of their team. The twins, responds the president. Do you honestly think that those chaotic, psychotic bitches will actually listen to you and be able to pull that off? Says the president, with the chief now restoring his glasses to his face. I do. They have a past relationship with Jasmine, and I believe they will absolutely be biased. So, we have them take out Jasmine, and then we try to figure out our next target upon the team, says the chief as he rises, nodding his head to the president. And without saying a word, the president waves the chief away, and as the chief exits the White House, he contacts the twins. Meanwhile, Vince grinds his teeth in anger as he scowls and stares down at Al, with Al too grinding his teeth and staring into the eyes of Vince. Do you really think you can beat me again? Do you honestly believe that you have the upper hand? Says Vince, with Al smirking. My dude, I've beaten you so many times. Go for it. If you actually think you can beat me this time, absolutely go for it. It's your move, my man. Go ahead and take it, says Al, with Vince getting angrier and putting his hand into a force field as he rises it up and rushes it down to a chessboard where he grabs a knight and moves the knight to the center of the board, but yet not letting go of the piece as he looks up to Al to see any emotion, but Al is simply smirking. Go ahead, let go of that piece, and then it'll be my turn, and you'll see if you've made a mistake and be checkmated, or if it'll give you the upper hand in the game. What are you waiting for, Vince? Let go of the knight, says Al, with Vince getting angrier as he squeezes the piece. You're bluffing. There's no way you can beat me again. And again and again and again continues Al from Vince's speech as Vince finally just grabs the piece off the board and throws it over his shoulder. You know, you've taken the fun out of board games. You're supposed to let your friends win every once in a while. It's the only thing that makes them want to continue playing, says Vince, with Al now standing up and grabbing a cane so that he can lean on it due to his smushed leg he received almost a year ago. Dude, I'm never gonna let you win. It's like one of the few things I actually enjoy is watching you be petty and squabble in your defeat, says Al as he walks away.
Hey, that's not the way you're supposed to be. That's villain talk,
says Vince as he grabs a blanket that's hanging on the seat and wraps himself in it.
Could we possibly turn up the thermostat? I'm starting to get kinda cold,
says Vince with Al shaking his head as he limps away with his cane. No, I have to stay warm. You can't have me freezing while I'm trying to heal up my leg, says Al, with Vince just looking down at the chessboard.
You were definitely bluffing. There's no way you were gonna beat me another time,
says Vince, with Al looking at his hands. What would that be? Like time 54? I'm sure you would have won the 55th one. With Alex listening to Al and Vince bickering over their games, she sits at her computer and receives an email for Jasmine by the name of two women, Zoe and Mary. And as Alex reads the letter, her eyes become wider and wider, and she becomes more panicked as she quickly prints off the email and rushes it to Jasmine's room. And as she opens the door, she sees Jasmine sitting on a stool, looking at herself in the mirror, not moving or doing her hair or makeup, but just sitting, looking at herself. With Alex confused, she hands the now printed email to Jasmine and realizes that she doesn't know much about Jasmine and has had hardly any time to talk with her or get to know her, even though they have been with each other for almost a year. And that begins causing Alex to wonder why Jasmine has yet to open up to the team. And as Jasmine reads the email, she begins to smile. Why are you smiling? Says Alex. This is threatening. They're threatening us. We're in trouble if these guys figure out where we are, says Alex, with Jasmine still smiling, shaking her head. No, you're not in trouble. We're not in trouble. I am in trouble. They're threatening me and me alone, says Jasmine, with Alex now crossing her arms and looking at her. Okay, no, we already agreed we're not splitting up anymore, and if one of us are threatened, then we are all threatened. If one of us are in danger, then we're all in danger. We already agreed to that, right? Says Alex, with Jasmine shaking her head again as she throws the papers on the ground. No, that is not right. I got these ones. I can take care of these ones by myself, says Jasmine, with Alex getting even more frustrated, putting her hands on her hip. No, that is... Why are you acting like Vince or Al? You don't have to do... Why does everyone think that they have to do this stuff alone? You have a team, you have a family. I don't understand. These guys seem serious. These women seem serious. And if you're going to be in danger, I don't understand why you can't have us helping you out, she says, with Jasmine standing up from the stool and gently pushing Alex back and out of the door, because there's no point in putting you guys at danger. You won't be able to do any good. You can try to hack their spears and you can shut them off, but it won't affect Zoe and Mary. They'll kill you anyways, and they'll have fun doing it. Vince's abilities will have nothing against these two. They'll be prepared for a guardian type, and Al, he's been injured. And you're right, we're a team, we're a family, meaning we watch out for each other and we don't put each other in harm's way, so I would appreciate it if you kept this quiet and left it to me, says Jasmine as she slams the door on Alex's face, with Alex simply standing there, frustrated. "Fine, but don't blame me if you die," says Alex as she walks away, with Jasmine once again sitting on the stool, looking in the mirror, trying to find out if she has any little bit of what she used to be still remaining. For all she sees is a reflection of an emotionless, characterless person looking back at her. There was a time where she could laugh, there was a time where she could be happy, and there was a time where she had the ambitions to be a great leader in the GBA. However, if she were to be described now, and if she were to be characterized, she would be empty. Someone that you could no longer relate with, someone you could not recognize yourself in, as she has little to no personality. And she looks back on why, and the answers are clear. Having to kill innocent people for what is claimed to be the greater good, having to kill innocent children, mothers and fathers, having to kill those who don't deserve it, has a heavy weight on one's soul. And as Jasmine continues looking herself in the mirror, she wonders why she could not do what Vince once did, why she could not walk away, why she couldn't see the errors in her ways, and why she needed Vince and Al to recognize the mistakes. And what angers her so much more than that is that she would have continued doing it if it wasn't for the chief being a genetic blessing or betraying her, and it angers her on the inside. Meanwhile, two women by the names of Zoe and Mary, who are twins, are in a warehouse as Mary is sitting on 3 piled up dead bodies, watching her twin sister dance around with a corpse of a man who was breathing not too long before. You know, he was actually kinda cute before we had to snuff him out, says Zoe, with Mary nodding as she's looking at her fingernails, noticing that some of her polish has been scraped off. Yeah, well, he was a genetic blessing, so we had to kill him, unfortunately. Do you think that Jasmine is actually going to come alone, or is she going to bring her friends? Says Mary, still looking at her fingernails, with Zoe still dancing around with the corpse of the man, as if he is some type of doll. I don't think she's gonna endanger her lovely family. I'm pretty sure she's gonna show up. And I really do look forward to torturing her, says Zoe as she finally stops dancing and drops the dead body of the man. You know, it's kind of funny. I can kill hundreds of genetic blessings, but Jasmine actually kind of scares me, says Zoe as she skips to Mary, with Mary scoffing at this. Please. She's nowhere near as fierce as she used to be. She used to be my idol. But now, my role model has become no more than a damsel in distress, and I'm going to enjoy punishing her for that. Jasmine prepares herself for the fight that she knows is going to commence as she condenses her spear and puts it in her back holster and suits up with her vest and safety gear while pulling out a large suitcase full of many, many knives. As she equips the blades on her person, she grabs specific blades to hold close to her hip as she grabs her Gerber Mark II, a double-edged dagger, a karambit, and a steel safe maker. She then covers it all with a leather jacket as she walks through the hallway of Vince's safe house, and as she passes, she sees Vince and Al playing a game of Uno, where Vince is getting frustrated once again at losing another game to Al, with Alex glaring at Jasmine. "You going for a walk?" says Alex as Jasmine looks at her and sees the glares coming her way. "Yes, Alex, I am going for a walk, and I will be back," she says as she exits the door, with Vince noticing Jasmine leaving and noticing the anger being shown from Alex. Very interesting indeed," says Vince to himself as Al yells in victory as he has an Uno, and Vince throws the cards down. "I hate you very much." The night is cold and rainy as Jasmine stands soaked in the rain outside the warehouse where Zoe and Mary await, and Jasmine looks into the sky with the raindrops hitting her face. "I'm not gonna enjoy this. I'm not gonna enjoy having to become that person again," says Jasmine as she looks back down at the door and enters the warehouse where Zoe and Mary are surrounded by dead bodies with terrified expressions on the faces of all the corpses who were once genetic blessings. "You know, I was once like you guys," says Jasmine. "I would kill anyone that had a genetic blessing. I'd do whatever it would take to accomplish my mission, and I left behind so many victims with that very same expression. The expression of fear, sadness, regret, and pain. And now it sickens me," says Jasmine, with Zoe jumping up. Wow! You actually showed up, and you showed up alone, without your family," says Zoe, with Mary looking down at her fingernails. "Well, I guess it's a good thing that you have a little bit of what you used to be left," says Mary. "Now, what is that supposed to mean?" responds Jasmine, with Mary still looking at her fingernails, but her face becoming angry. "Why'd you do it? Why'd you betray the GBA? Sacrifice being a leader, maybe someday a chief, to go and let Vince be your boss. Let Vince be a leader. That man, he's so egotistical, so arrogant. It disgusts me. And I'm sure you think protecting your family is a loyal, noble thing to do, but if they were to protect you, it wouldn't be because you're family. It'd be because you're a woman," says Mary as she rises and getting her spear ready and extended, with Zoe following suit, with Jasmine simply smiling as she pulls a blade out from her hip. "Okay. I feel like you got some things to unpack, but I could care less about what the reason is. If someone saves me, I'm gonna be grateful, no matter what. I mean, I get to continue living, regardless if that's because I'm a woman or not," says Jasmine, with Mary now pointing the spear at Jasmine. "See, that is not the Jasmine I used to know. You used to be a strong, independent woman. You wouldn't let Vince boss you around or tell you what to do or what the right thing was. You'd make the decision for yourself. I used to idolize you," says Mary, with Jasmine looking at the blade that she now holds in her hand. "Well, I'm sorry that you used to idolize a person that was so heinous and evil, and I'm sorry you got the wrong misconception of me, but I do still have a little bit of what I used to be left over. For example, my love for knives. This here is a Gerber Mark II," she says as she still looks at the blade, It's got a 6.5-inch blade made with 420 HC, and it has a black oxide coating, and it's double serrated, meaning it enters my victims nicely, but upon removal, oh, that shit hurts, says Jasmine. And Mary and Zoe launch towards Jasmine with the spears pointing directly at her, getting ready to engage in combat, with Jasmine stepping back, getting into a battle formation with her knife pointing directly down the center between Mary and Zoe. Zoe spurts to the left and lunges her spear towards Jasmine, and so Jasmine swings herself to the left, turning her back towards Mary, while putting her blade into a reverse grip, blocking Zoe's spear. And as Mary lunges her spear towards the back of Jasmine, Jasmine quickly uses her left hand to grab her karambit as she swings her arm behind her back, blocking the strike. And she is now in between the two as they press as hard as they can with the spear. And Jasmine then rotates her body fully around, swinging the spears, forcing them to slide along her side, while flipping the karambit and lunging it towards the throat of Mary. Mary quickly sidesteps to the left as she dodges the blade, with Zoe swinging her spear around and then swinging it down with the electrical pulse now going through the spear. Jasmine then lets go of the karambit and dives forward, dodging the spear. Jasmine then turns her dive into a somersault and then rotates her body with her left heel as she lunges and throws the Gerber Mark II blade directly towards Zoe's chest, and Zoe manages to barely dodge the blade from piercing her heart, and it pierces her shoulder instead as she is knocked down from the pain. Jasmine pulls out 2 more Gerber Mark IIs as she double wields the blades, crouching down into a fighting stance, with the blades interlocking into an X shape. As she stares down at Mary and Zoe, Mary looks at her sister. "Get the fuck up. It's just a flesh wound," says Mary. As Zoe looks at her sister angrily, she gets back up, and as she tries to remove the blade from her shoulder, the teeth in the blade begin removing flesh as Zoe screams, and the blade finally removes as she throws it down. Jasmine looking at Mary. "I'm about to show you the kind of person you idolized. I'm about to show you the kind of monster that no one wants to be, and the kind of monster that I hate being," says Jasmine, with Mary scoffing. "Oh, please. You're no monster. You need relationships. You need Vince, and you're convinced that the only way to be happy is to have a family. That's not me. I'm in charge of my own happiness," says Mary, with Jasmine rolling her eyes. Yeah, I've heard it all before. "Let's just get this over with," says Jasmine as she becomes the attacker, charging towards Mary and Zoe as she dives to the right, angling herself towards Zoe. She throws one of the blades at Mary, forcing Mary to block it with her spear, while then slashing it towards Zoe, with Zoe only being able to use one of her arms, swings her spear downwards, connecting to the blade. She then rotates the spear around Jasmine's blade so that the spear is angled towards Jasmine's neck, and then she then swings it, trying to slash the throat of Jasmine. However, Jasmine just bends backwards and letting the spear glide over her, she pulls out one more karambit as she reverses it into a spear, long, angled stance and lunges it towards Zoe. Zoe allows the blade to connect and pierce her stomach, and with a scream, she grabs the wrist of Jasmine and throws a roundhouse kick connecting to Jasmine's skull, while then popping the spear onto the ground, forcing the other side of Jasmine's skull to connect with the spear. And without letting go, Zoe rotates her body and throws Jasmine over her shoulder, slamming her into the ground. And as Zoe goes to stab Jasmine manages to roll to the right with the spear connecting to the ground. Jasmine rises, but not enough time to defend herself from Mary, who has managed to get behind her and pierce the spear through the back of Jasmine. With Jasmine screaming in pain as the spear goes through her body, she doesn't hesitate to reach around her and hit the button that causes the spear to condense into itself. And as the spear condenses, it falls down, with Jasmine now having a hole in her torso, dripping with blood, and blood coming out of her mouth. She rotates quickly and catches the spear before it hits the ground, and rotates it as she once again extends the spear, and upon extension, it pierces the body of Mary, and Jasmine picks Mary up with the spear. With Mary now being hoisted up by the spear, Jasmine rotates Mary all the way over and slams her into the ground, while then rotating the spear to where the cables are pointing towards Zoe. And Jasmine pulls out her Gerber Mark II blade once again and shoves the blade in between the cables. As she fires, the blade separates the cables, and Jasmine then quickly kicks the rod with her foot, causing it to rotate, forcing two cables to go over a pipe, and the other two cables stabbing into the feet of Zoe. And Jasmine, holding her stomach, runs to the now dangling cables over the pipe and grabs the cables, and as she pulls, it forces the spear in the air, with the other two cables now dragging Zoe across the ground. While Zoe's body is being dragged across the ground, it is then hoisted up into the air as Jasmine is now pulling down the cables, hoisting Zoe up. She runs and wraps the cables around Zoe's neck and hits the button on the spear that causes the cables to start retracting, and with the cables pulling Zoe from the feet and from the neck, Zoe can feel her torso being torn, with the skin around her waist tearing, and then the flesh tearing. Zoe begins screaming in utter pain, while Mary watches her sister in horror. Zoe's body is torn clean in half as Jasmine hits the ground, being sprayed and covered in the blood that is now dripping from the two halves of Zoe's body. Jasmine looks at Mary. This is not a person you want to admire. I'm not a person to admire, and I'm not a role model. I kill people. Don't you get it? You and I aren't strong, independent women. We kill people. We do horrible things. And I can't believe I was a role model to anybody, says Jasmine, with Mary not listening to a single word coming out of Jasmine's mouth, but being engulfed with pure anger as she sees the two halves of her sister hanging from the warehouse. Meanwhile, Vince stands in Jasmine's room reading the printed off emails, with Alex standing by his side.
Well, these are some pretty intense threats, especially the ones towards me,
says Vince as he throws down the papers, with Alex nodding her head. Yeah, which is probably why she went off on her own to protect us, but I don't understand why she left without our help, and I don't understand why we're not chasing her right now, says Alex, with Vince looking at her.
It's simple. She did the right thing, and she did what she was supposed to do,
says Vince, with Alex getting confused and angry. Wait, what? No, Vince. You and I both agreed that we're gonna stop splitting up. You and I both agreed that we're gonna start working as a team, says Alex, with Vince lighting up a cigarette and inhaling the smoke.
And that is exactly what Jasmine is doing. She is not protecting us from the twins. She's fully capable of taking out the twins. We're fully capable of taking out the twins. What she is protecting us from is seeing who she truly is,
says Vince, with Alex getting confused.
Have you ever wondered why I needed Jasmine? Have you wondered why we recruited her in the first place? You know why we needed Al, so tell me, why do we need Jasmine?
Says Vince, with Alex thinking for a moment, and then realizing she doesn't know why they need Jasmine. With Vince continuing smoking his cigarette.
The answer is simple. I struggle with the moral compass. There are things I cannot bring myself to do. Al is the same way, and so are you. But when you are starting a war, the same war that you and I are wanting to start, there are things someone must do that makes them no longer be able to stand their own reflection. Not being able to look at yourself in the mirror, being willing to lose your soul, doing things that no one else can stomach doing. You need that one person that won't ask whether it's right or wrong, but simply do what must be done. Howard, Zorg, and Lance were all redeemable. I was able to spare their lives and even recruit them, but the twins? No. They would not have been able to be spared. We would have had to kill them. And unlike many of my victims, the twins would not be rightful deaths. They've committed no sins larger than we have. They've done no worse crimes than we have. And they are no worse than we are. Killing them would not have been just. So, what do you do in that situation, Alex?
Says Vince, as Alex thinks about the words of Vince. So, you're telling me that Jasmine is the person willing to do whatever needs to be done, regardless if it's right or wrong, and she's the one that we need to kill those who we can't justify killing ourselves? Says Alex, with Vince nodding his head.
Yes, Jasmine is not a hero teamed up with other heroes. Jasmine is a villain partnering up with heroes to defeat a greater villain. There's very little humanity left in Jasmine. There's very little compassion left in Jasmine. The only thing keeping Jasmine remotely tied to humanity is Al. I could never do it. Somehow he has. But when that woman has decided that something must be done, I will pray over the souls of anyone that stands in her way. If she wanted to, I'm sure she could kill me. However, her moral compass must be there somewhere, 'cause she has yet to manage to justify it. But when the time came, she would do it without question. This is why we need Jasmine. She will be the one to become a monster, a demon, a villain. She will kill, harm, steal, break, and shatter everything, if it means doing what needs to be done, while the rest of us contemplate if it's the right thing to do. She will pull the trigger, which is why she's necessary and why the twins are going to die.
Jasmine and Mary are locked in combat as they both struggle to breathe with their injuries. As Mary steals one of the knives out of Jasmine's holster, Jasmine pulls out one more blade. As the blades clash into each other, they look at each other with their mouths bloodied and their stomachs pierced, with slashes being given from one another. As Jasmine slashes Mary with the knife, Mary slashes Jasmine, and when they can, they grapple each other and force the blades out of each other's hands, continuously swapping the knives back and forth as they continuously try to kill each other with their eyes locked upon one another. Jasmine finally manages to get Mary into a grapple as she sidesteps to the right and wraps the blade around Mary's throat. "Listen, Mary," says Jasmine, "what I am doing is wrong. You know that, and I know that. But you gotta do this one thing. Admit that what you have done is also wrong, and I might be able to let you go," says Jasmine. However, Mary does not want to hear it as she reverses the blade into a reverse grip and shoves it into the thigh of Jasmine. Jasmine realizes that there is only going to be one victor, and so she pulls the blade back, slashing the throat of Mary as she falls to the ground, grabbing her throat, gasping for air. The life slowly leaves her eyes, with Jasmine limping out of the warehouse and going back outside to where it is still raining. She sees Vince standing in the distance.
"So, you had to do it once again, did you?"
says Vince, with Jasmine dropping the knife and only looking at him.
"I'm sorry. Truly, I am,"
says Vince, and Jasmine just slowly walks to him. Vince and Jasmine sit outside the warehouse with the rain still pouring down. As Jasmine looks at Vince, "You know, you once asked me if I could sleep at night, and the answer is no. I haven't been able to sleep in a long time, and I haven't been able to forgive myself for the things I've done," says Jasmine, with Vince lighting up a cigarette.
"Yeah, I know. I'm fully aware,"
says Vince, with Jasmine then looking up. "Well, when we find the God Orb, I want to be the one to use it, says Jasmine, with Vince looking at her.
I'm sorry. I thought you were anti-genetic blessing. That, and no offense, but I don't think you're strong enough. It'll kill you,
says Vince, with Jasmine leaning her head on his shoulder. I know, but I think I'm ready. How much longer could someone like me continue living on? If I die the way I am now, I'll die a very bad person. But if I am killed by the God blessing saving the world, I get to die a hero, says Jasmine as Vince wraps his arms around her.
You know, I think that's why you and I never worked out. You're a bad person, I'm a bad person, and we both want to do what's right, and now we both want to die a hero. That, could make a marriage kinda hard, I suppose. But you can't leave Al behind. That guy would annoy the hell out of me if it's just him and I. Alex is gonna grow up and find a life, and well, I don't want to be stuck with that bastard,
says Vince, with Jasmine getting a small smile. Yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to see who gets to it first, won't we? Says Jasmine, with Vince now standing up, tightening his suit and tie, while lighting up a cigarette.
Jasmine, I don't want you doing it because you're becoming suicidal. I don't want you doing it because you feel like you don't deserve to live. Whoever sacrifices himself with the God Orb has to do it with the right reason. Do you understand? You're not allowed to use it as an excuse to escape,
says Vince, with Jasmine now standing up to his level. And you? Are you doing it for the right reason, or are you doing it to escape? Says Jasmine.
I have nothing to escape from,
responds Vince.
I do not have any reason to escape. I believe I am doing it for the right reason. Once I get my hand on the God Orb, we are about to start a war, Jasmine. And if I am left alive, I'll be at the front of it, with Alex by my side. And my mere existence will bring her harm. However, if I die when the war has begun, Alex will be forced to move on and live the life she deserves to live without me threatening her mere existence. So, I feel like my reasoning is just. It is to protect Alex and many other young people who deserve lives far better than the ones we live. Then again, I don't feel like I am an authoritarian on what's right or wrong, or what's good or bad. Those kind of things tend to not be very clear. For the most part, there is no good or bad side, simply the side you're on and the actions you decide to make. I don't think anyone has the right to tell anybody if they're on the wrong side or not. But that is a conversation for another day,
says Vince as he walks Jasmine back to his hideout. And that is Genetic Blessings Part 2, Chapter 3. And I hope you guys enjoyed. If you made it this long, thank you very much. And if you really enjoyed, do consider hitting the like and subscribe button. And absolutely feel free to comment if you have any ideas or desires for certain things to happen in Genetic Blessings. I'm not opposed to taking ideas or suggestions. I think it would improve my story. So, with that being said, do not get hit by a meteor, take care of yourselves, and bye.